Hello, this is an interview with hypnotherapists, and it is Randy Shaw from Advanced Hypnotherapy in Utah. Am I correct?
Yes, and we also have a teaching business, which we call it Results Beyond Expectation. And our website is regression-hypnotherapy.com.
Yes, and there would be a link after that. There would be a link. Okay, sorry interrupt you.
That's okay. You just lay it out the way you want, and I'll do what I can.
Okay, and before we spoke about learning to be good hypnotist, and you said you have boot camp and you have teaching resources like video and
video programs
yes.
that teach regression work,
Mm-hmm.
which encompasses the basics of hypnotism, but takes it a little deeper, because most hypnotism will focus on a surface symptom or a surface problem. And the hypnotism is okay for light issues, but when you get into medium issues or deeper issues, the hypnotism needs to reach in deeper. Therefore, we go into regression, because regression goes back in time, back into a person's experiences, to help alleviate and resolve issues from the past that are carried into the now and the current person's time. So thus, regression is necessary to get deeper. You see, the problem is some hypnosis can produce a behavioral change, but what it's doing is it's covering up the problem temporarily until the problem surfaces again. And rather than just covering it up, our job or our goal with regression hypnotherapy is to go back in time in the hypnotic state, in hypnosis, to the other situations that have set up the problems now. So in other words, when somebody calls me up and they say, I'm afraid of dogs, would you hypnotize me so I'm not afraid of dogs? And I simply say, no, I wouldn't do that if this is a long-standing problem. Now, if this just happened a week ago or 6 months ago or a year ago, I say light hypnotism would probably work. I say, how long have you been afraid of dogs? And they'll say, about 40 years or 30 years or 20 years. And I'll say, well, the thing is it's been building up over years, and we need to take those layers of feelings about the dogs off, so that as you go back in time, there's no pressure there. There's no feelings in the body towards it. So the regression takes us back to earlier events of the person's life when they were afraid of dogs, and usually it's a fearful event, sometimes a traumatic event early in childhood. As we go back in time, we can release the feelings in hypnosis so that the event becomes neutral, so that they can learn how to get along with dogs and not have the response there. So as long as the feeling is there, then the response will be the same. But once the feeling is gone, the response can change. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, I just thought about, do you work with kids?
You know, I don't work with a lot of kids. I think the youngest I can claim success with is about 8 years of age. And I'm interested why you asked that question.
Because you said you talked about fear of dogs, and I spoke some times ago with a mother whose child is afraid of dogs, and I said about this thing I do, but she didn't call me. But if do regression on that kind of regression on children, I never did regression with children like that, but I remember Stephen Parkhill somewhere said that this technique is not very good at children.
I mostly agree with what Stephen said, and the reason for that is to have a real effective change that is respectful of the person's soul. Okay, we need the adult mind to be able to make sense of this. Now, if I work with somebody who's 20 years old, they have an adult mind. Mm-hmm. And if we regress back into 6, I've got the adult mind in the background that's going to help me make sense of it, so the 6-year-old isn't left alone. If I work with a 6-year-old, The adult mind doesn't exist yet, okay? So if I implant my views of the world to the 6-year-old, then I had better be right ethically and morally. Does that make sense?
Yes, but
Because when you start to program a 6-year-old, you're starting to play God. Okay?
but
Now, with a simple situation like fear of dogs, okay? With children, and like I said, I'm going to say again, I don't remember working successfully with anybody younger than 8. Regression, let's just slide off that term regression and let's just use imagination. Okay? Because kids are so good with imagination. So I simply have them imagine an event with a dog. Whether it's a true regression or not doesn't matter, because the subconscious mind is the feeling mind. It's not the thinking mind. It doesn't analyze. It's more concerned with feelings and perceptions. So as they slide off into imagination, whether it's a real memory or not doesn't matter, because what we're doing is we're changing the way they feel about it as we do it. In other words, we're having them go into an event where they actually, or imaginarily, have a fear of a dog because something bad happens. As we can release those feelings, and are you familiar, Alexander, with EFT?
yes, I'm familiar with EFT, but I never use it, and kind of not really understand. I don't understand the principle, but
let me explain that my partner and my good friend Matt Sisson took EFT and applied hypnotic principles to it, and then shared it with me, and we use it successfully in regressions, in all sorts of situations, to just release the feelings out of the nervous system, which is, this nervous system is where the subconscious mind resides anyway. So with a child, I wouldn't necessarily have them just breathe through it or hit a pillow, which a pillow is a beautiful way to release energy. But usually I just would have children teach them a very basic form of rubbing and tapping like we do in EFT to release the feeling. And by the time they're done with that process, the body feels comfortable, calm, relaxed, and strong. So as we go back into that dog situation, I would have them bring up the feeling, and we bring up the feeling because it's still there. And the more we can bring up, the more can be released. Let me say that again. The more we can bring up, the more can be released. So as the feeling comes up, we use tools to help it out. It's the movement of the pillow, okay, hitting on the pillow, and that can be very gentle, or it can be quite intense. It doesn't matter. Each feeling has its own intensity and its own speed. Another way is the rubbing and the tapping, okay, to be able to bring the feeling out of the nervous system. Now, do you know how when have you tried to talk to somebody that's really angry and they can't listen, can they?
No, they're in the process.
Right. They're so hypnotized, they're so locked up with anger. The problem is, if the body's locked up, the mind will be locked up. There's no clarity there. So let's say that you're trying to help that person, but they can't listen. But 2 days later, they're not angry anymore. They feel much better. Okay. Now they can listen, right? Because the anger is overwhelming the nervous system, and when we are overwhelmed with emotion, we go into the fight or flight syndrome. Do you know what that is?
Yes.
Good. So in other words, the blood of the body goes to the muscles and to the nerves in a fight or flight situation. That cuts down the blood flow to the brain. Okay. So we've got two things going there. Is the mind as a spiritual esoterical thing is not functioning as well because of the energy in the body, and number two, the blood in the body is not going to the brain as much. So in other words, when somebody is locked up and overwhelmed with certain emotions and feelings, there's not clarity there. So the first thing Matt and I do is we help the person to get clarity and to feel some relief and to open up the critical faculty, is just start to release some negative feelings. And it always calms them down. And listen to this, Alexander, it is amazing induction. Okay? In other words, I don't need the watch in front of their face. Don't need that. Don't need a 2-minute Elman. They don't need to lose the numbers. All we need to do is have them close their eyes, start talking about what is bothering them, and as soon as the feelings come up, you're in hypnosis, because now you're in the feeling mind, you're not in the thinking mind. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I sometimes face situations when person starts talking about their problems, what they feel, and it's endless, and it's like they go in victim mode.
Right, and that what you have to do at that point, and I know you're very new to this, and you're doing excellent. But what you have to do this is in your pre-talk, you have to tell them why we're going to talk about it, what role feelings play in the hypnosis, and how the feelings are perpetuating the problem. Okay, it's not just a thought; it's a feeling in the body. Because as they talk about the fear of the dog, I'll hear them go like this: "Well, how long have you been afraid of dogs?" "Oh, a long." Can you hear the emotion in their voice already?
Yes.
Okay, I want them to close their eyes, and I'll say simply, close your eyes for a moment and tell me what you're feeling in your body. What are you feeling as you think about dogs? And they'll say, I'm feeling scared. And I'll say, keep your eyes closed. Tell me where you feel the scared feeling. And it's in the throat, it's in the chest, it's hard to breathe, it's sick in the stomach. As we work with those feelings were generated by an experience or a set of experiences with a dog, correct?
Probably.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Very good. I like how you left that open. It may be something else. You're right. You're a sharp guy. Now, my point is, as I help them release that tight feeling in the chest, the sick feeling in the stomach, the next time as we go through this, I'll say, now tell me how long you've been afraid of dogs. And I'll say, oh, about 20 years. Can you see the difference in the voice? The first,
less emotions.
Thank you. Very good. Much less emotion. Now, remember that the perception is surrounded by the feeling, right? The perception can't change until the feeling changes. So as we release the feeling, now the perception can change and go do something else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So thus, it isn't just regression. It isn't just finding out what events. It's not just going back there. It's doing something to produce relief and to release pressure once we get there. Okay? So many people will come and say, well, I know what the problem is. I was abandoned when I was 3, or I was in a car accident when I was 8. So they already have the logical knowledge, the memory of it, okay? But what I want to know is as they talk about it, how does it make their body feel? What is their goal in life? How is this affecting them? As we start to bring that up, that's the subconscious mind talking, because the subconscious mind doesn't talk about, the subconscious mind doesn't care about panic, the word panic. It doesn't care about the word depression or borderline personality or schizophrenia. What we're talking about at the subconscious level is, the subconscious level is talking about feelings and emotions, sensations in the body. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That's how the subconscious mind talks to us. Impressions, okay? As we work through the feelings, the subconscious mind will tell us really what's going on through how we're feeling. Does that make sense? In other words, let me say this. The subconscious mind, if you want to know how you're programmed, it's your automatic responses. Because the subconscious mind is the automatic mind. The conscious mind is the thinking mind. If you want to do something with the thinking mind, you have to think about it first, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The subconscious mind is not that. It is the thinking, it is the automatic mind. So in other words, if it's been programmed and compounded and reinforced, or if an emotional situation's happened, the subconscious mind can act automatically.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay? So it's our automatic responses that is how the subconscious mind talks to us. So when somebody talks about being afraid of a dog, I'm watching the body, I'm watching their eyes, I'm listening to their voice, I'm watching if their shoulders tighten up. That's the response right there. Now, as we start to release those feelings are attached to the thought of dogs. Not afraid of water, not afraid of fire, afraid of dogs, right? So as we release the feeling, then the opinion about the dog can change.
Okay, question.
Sure.
You releasing feelings from the feelings of afraid dogs now or in regression?
We start in the now and work backwards. And the reason for that is, have you seen how up here are the symptoms, then there's more, and it's like an upside down pyramid that comes down to a base, a base event or set of events that cause the perception in the first place. And then as we get older, more of those happen, and they compound and compound, and now we're on the top up here where all kinds of symptoms are happening. Like I get sick at the thought of dog, or my skin itches at the thought of a dog. Those are symptoms that were produced by these earlier layers in life. So as we work on this layer here, it opens up the next layer. As we work through this layer here, it opens up the next layer. And often the subconscious mind is so ready for this that it'll jump a few layers and just kind of hop back into the hot spots of what we call the ISE, the initial sensitizing events. In other words, the very first times those things happen.
So, as I understand, when person with fear comes to you, you first getting feelings out of this.
Well, let's start. Let's back up. I give a good pre-talk.
Okay.
In other words, what I want them to understand is my processes, why they work, and what we'll be doing, so that they don't feel nervous about taking the next step. Okay? Because a good pre-talk is setting up your next step. Now, I also want them to understand that I will listen to them. I will help them through the steps. I'm not the Wizard of Oz. I'm not the regular, the Zengali hypnotist. I will not take over their mind. I will work with their subconscious mind to help them feel better. So part of the pre-talk, of course, is gaining trust and gaining great rapport. So before we ever start to release feelings, I want to talk about how the mind works, how the body works, how the two work together. And if the two don't work together, the subconscious mind is stronger than the thinking mind and takes over. When the feelings take over, that's when we're in a trance. We're not doing what we really want to do. We're not quite aware of it. We're out of control. So what will wake us up from the trance is often is pain. Like I hate this. And so they'll come to me and say, I'm tired of this. And I'll say, well, focus on your body. What do you feel? I'll say, well, I'm tired of it, but underneath I kind of feel I'm just scared of dogs. Okay. So at that point, I'll say, I want you to close your eyes and focus on your body. Where do you feel the scared feeling in your body? And I say, well, it's just nervous everywhere. And I said, wouldn't it be nice that if you could walk down the street, see a dog and not have to feel that scared feeling throughout your body? Wouldn't that be nice? And I'll go, yes. I said, well, I'll tell you what, let's go to the next point now, and I'll show you how we're going to release that out of your body so that your subconscious mind will let you learn how to get along with dogs if you choose. Does that make sense? So can you see how gentle this is? But what we do is each step is I need to talk about what hypnosis is. It's not this trance where they're sitting in the chair and their eyes are closed and their tongue is hanging out and they can't talk and I'm taking over them. No, we want to get rid of that. We want to talk about we're in hypnosis every day to a certain degree. It's not like the light switch that goes on and off. It's like a dimmer switch. It comes on a little, it goes down a little, it comes on a little more, it comes down a little. Like when I'm driving, I can talk to people on my telephone. I can help people release panic attacks as I drive. Now my conscious mind is tied up with the phone conversation, but I'm driving safely. So who's driving my car? Well, it's the subconscious mind, see? It's been programmed to do that. That's a good thing. The trouble is if we have situations earlier in life that bother us and we don't know how to resolve them, or we're not allowed to resolve them, then those things become automatic programs as well. So in other words, hypnosis or the subconscious mind does not determine what is good or bad. All it says is this is your experience, and if it's strong enough, I will continue it for you. Okay? Now the subconscious mind will change if you give it a good enough reason, and the good enough reason is it just feels better. Okay? So the subconscious mind is programmed like a computer, but it will change if you talk its language, if you respect its feelings, if you let it tell you what the real problem is. Because, Alexander, you know, sometimes people don't really know where their problems come from. They think it come from, if they're 30, they say, well, it started when I was 25. But you see, really, let me give you an example. Once in a while, I'll work with couples. I work with the man and the woman separately.
Mm-hmm.
And the first session, you know, they want marriage hypnosis or marriage counseling. And I tell them, I don't do that, but I can help you. I can help you get the clarity so that you can decide whether you want to stay or whether you want to get divorced. That's what I can do. So they come in, and the first session is almost always anger, frustration, sadness at the spouse. At the end of that first session, they're so clear about the spouse, they'll finally realize the feeling comes from, oh my gosh, this reminds me of my mother. Okay? That feeling has taken back and given an image, a feeling, an impression. Oh my gosh, I married my mother. Okay? So you see where I'm headed with this?
Mm-hmm. But
people usually don't know where their real problem comes from. So as we clear the surface, as we clear the smoke screen, as we clear the layers, the real issues underneath start to open up and talk to us.
mm-hmm. The question is like that. In affect bridge technique, which some people used for regression, feelings which bad feelings is very important because they make it possible to regress to the
Yes.
to sensitizing events, initial, subsequent sensitizing event. And if initially make feelings out, relieve feelings, so it's possible it won't be such problem for the person, and it would be maybe more difficult to regress.
No, it's Matt and I have found it's just the opposite. As you clear off this feeling, the next feeling feels safer. In other words, we don't lose the trail. The trail's right there. Let me give you an example. This is a very intelligent question that you asked. Let's say that they've gone back to age 12, and they're feeling very unloved and very discouraged about life, and they regress back to a situation in the family dinner table, and dad is saying something to the client, and dad is saying something to the mom, and we work through that until they can feel okay about it. Some hypnotists say, well, oh my gosh, you can't let all that go or we'll lose the trail back to the childhood stuff. And I'll say, no, I say, we'll let it clear. Then as they tell me about the dad thing, talking to mom, talking to them, feeling bad at age 12, I'll say, now that you're feeling better, what do you see now? And they'll say, well, gee, dad's kind of a jerk and all that, or whatever they see, you know. I let them tell me. And then I'll say, but true or false, this isn't the first time dad's been a jerk. Or true or false, this isn't the first time in your life you felt this way. And they'll go, oh no, I felt this before in my life. Good. I'm going to count from 5 down to 1. And as I do, your mind will take you back to an earlier scene, situation, or event where you're feeling this way, knowing that once we get there, you can finally release it and feel better. So in other words, I've just, can you see what I just did there?
Yes, you make acknowledge that feelings is familiar, and you from that going back.
I knew this didn't start at 12. She was set up at 12. I knew that the feeling was already there. Then also, as we talk about going back and following that feeling, you see, if there's all of this pressure, okay, to get from here down to the ISE is going to take, sometimes it just takes a sledgehammer, or it takes a lot of effort. The way Matt and I do it is so much easier. Just start to take the layers off, and then they can breathe, and then they can feel safer. Then the subconscious mind in the body says, well, this feels pretty good. I'll take you to the next one. I feel safe enough to let you hear, see? So I know at age 12, in this example, this didn't start at age 12. I mean, as soon as dad started talking, the feelings came up. So in other words, this has happened earlier in life. This is very simple. So I simply say, true or false, this isn't the first time you felt this way, that dad has been a jerk for a while. Yeah, I said, I'm just going to count from from 5 to 1. Now notice what I also said. Knowing that when we get to this earlier scene, situation, or relationship or event, that you're going to be able to feel better about it as you use your new tools in this earlier. You see what I'm saying is I'm giving them confidence that we're going back now into something that used to be very painful, but this time we're going back to heal it, to resolve it. And we just proved it at age 12, and we just proved it before that at age 20, see? So we've got momentum going back.
Mm-hmm. When you make regression to some time when person is adult, you make you work with every situation or go in earlier. So I mean you dissolve, you make every situation right, or just skip something.
No. What happens is let's say the person, give me an age, and let's start with an age. Pick an age, any age.
Okay. For example, I had a client who was about, for example, 50 something, and she experienced last 4 years, for example, it was very difficult for her. It was a lot of bad things happens, and when I make when we increase bad feelings and make regression, she almost every time goes with last 4 years. Occasionally something 25, 30, 18, but never, and it was good time for it probably was good time for her, but I mean, I thought, why we bother this age when, and it was started long before, because seeds were probably
Okay, you've got to give her enough reason that number one, in her mind, it started 4 years ago, correct?
Yes, maybe, but yes.
Okay, so what you have to do is you have to set up your success before you hit the road bump. Okay, so I would say I would gently tell her that many of these things start under the surface before we realize they're happening. You see, if you grew up in a town where they have a lot of cows, and you can smell the cow poop, it's smelly. But if you grow up in that town, you just think it's normal. Okay, then you leave that town and you go to the fresh air, but then you come back to your town and you go, oh my gosh, my town stinks. See, you don't know that until you have a comparison. So we grow up with things that are abnormal, but since we don't know any different, we think it's just normal. And it isn't till later in life when it stacks up and really is bad, and then it starts to hurt or bother us or frustrate us. Then we go, well, wait a minute, something's wrong. Now the problem is it's stacking up year by year until finally there's so much there that it just collapses and creates a symptom. Okay, whether it's fear, whether it's panic, or whether it's a physical illness. Now that symptom probably happened 4 years ago, right? But it's been building for years and years and years. And I can give you the perfect example. Had a woman come into me who was dying of seizures, and her doctor told her to go home and get her will and get her funeral. And in other words, they couldn't give her a pill to stop it, and there was no x-rays to stop it, no chemo, and they couldn't cut anything out of her body, so they told her to go home and die. Well, she's only 35 years old and had 3 kids. She didn't want to die. So what she told me was her first seizure was age 14. So she'd had 21 years of increasingly worse seizures. Now, at age 14, in her mind, that's when it started, Alexander.
What is a seizure?
A seizure is when the brain and they
epileptic.
Yes, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. And what I know is before the first seizure, there's pressure in the body and the nervous system building already. Okay,
mm-hmm.
Seizures don't just come out of nowhere, unless you stick your finger into the electrical socket, then you can get one there.
I did once in childhood.
yeah. But see, that's what the seizure's like, when the energy in the body builds up so much. And what it was is with her mother treated her terrible, just absolutely horrible for the first 14 years of her life. And her subconscious mind chose a seizure to be able to in other words, it didn't really choose uh, have you got about 5 minutes? I'll just tell you this case history. It's a beautiful
Yes,
one.
yes, yes. No problem.
Good.
Okay.
So here I'm gonna start at the beginning. She calls me up and she's crying because she feels like she's dying. But she called my father, who was a hypnotist, and he does more direct suggestion hypnotism, so he referred her to me. And she had been searching the internet, and her doctors literally gave her a death sentence. So when she called me, she was crying a lot. And what I wanted to do is I wanted her to cry enough so I could hear what she really wanted. So in other words, I didn't tell her to stop crying or it's okay. I said, once you get that cry out, you're going to be able to tell me what you really want. You're going to feel better. You're going to be able to breathe. You and I are going to connect. So I gave her a good reason. I let her to cry, okay? Whereas everybody else is going, oh, gee, I don't know what to do, or gee, stop crying. I said, no, I just want you to let that cry out. And when it's out of the way, we'll be able to have a better conversation. Once she did that, she told me, I want to stay alive because my kids are young. I don't want to die. And I could hear the strength and resolve in her voice, okay? She comes in for the first session, and she tells me about, the 14, and I didn't tell her that the first seizure at 14 was set up, it had to be set up by years of accumulating energy in the body. Things that are trapped and stored and just blocked off. And Alexander, if when we eat, if we can't go to the bathroom over the next week, we're going to be full of crap, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is exactly what happened with hers. She could not release her frustration. She could not release her anger. She could not release her sadness. So at age 14, there's a reason she did this. I did not tell her that it started before 14, so I just came and sat with her. And we started rubbing and tapping on her feeling right now. And her greatest feeling was just feeling overwhelmed at the thought of dying and leaving her children. So as we release that feeling out of the body, she feels just this much better. So in other words, on a scale of 1 to 10, she was feeling 10 terrible. Now she's only 8, okay? So we've got a little bit of momentum going. Then I said, okay, now tell me what you want. And she says, well, I want to stay alive. And she said, but the doctors told me I'm going to die. And there was the scared feeling. So now we work with that feeling. That's the next one. See, I'm not smart enough to know which feeling I'm supposed to work with. I'm letting her subconscious mind tell us. And the next one was fear of dying. So we worked through that until she could breathe. And see, you can't tell somebody they're not dead yet if they're feeling bad. So I let her release the feeling. Now there's room for my suggestion. I said, say this, but I'm still alive. I'm still breathing. I'm still my kid's mother. Now, you can't do that before the feeling's released. They can't hear you. But now there's some room. I can slip that in. And she took a nice deep breath and she says, you damn right, I'm still alive. Now she's got some strength. So we went from a 10 to 8, now down to about a 5. She's way down. The next feeling that came up was guilt. Guilt that she wasn't a good mother. Guilt that her husband had to drive her everywhere. They had to take her to the hospital all the time. And for the first session, all we did was work on surface feelings, okay? Then she just started crying a river, only this cry was a cleansing cry. It was so beautiful to see this coming out. And when she was through, she was sitting up straighter, she had color in her face, and as she opened her eyes, she had strength in her eyes. Now, can you see how just releasing those feelings changed her energy already?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Now, next session she came in and we started working with what was causing the seizures. And I said, well, what is that's been bothering your life? Things, and what I do is I just let her start talking. And the first thing that came up was her mother. Well, this woman's 35 years old. What's mother got to do with it? And as she spoke about her mother, she started getting increasingly tight. Her body started getting tight. I said, close your eyes and I want you to focus in your body. What are you feeling right now? I'm just feeling scared. I had put the pillow on her lap and I just started having her move that feeling of scared from her chest and her body into the pillow. And the more she moved her arm, the more it came out of her body. To make a long story short, we worked 2 full sessions on nothing but feelings about her mother. After the second session, she no longer had the seizures. She had a 30-second blackout between session 2 and session 3. After session 3, she wasn't even having the blackouts. Okay? In session 3, we were working with childhood events about mother, and up came uh, a fear of talking to mother, and she says, I can't breathe. Okay? Now, most hypnotists are going to freak and say, okay, come out of the trance, don't think of mom, attend to your breathing, think of roses or something. And I said, I want you to put that feeling into the pillow. And she couldn't move her arm. So what I did is I just gently came over and I kind of, have you ever seen people tap the forehead
Yes.
like this?
Yes.
Okay. I came over and I give her a pretty good whack and I said, breathe. And I just did what you call a pattern interruption. And what she did is she goes, and she actually breathed. Then I said, breathe again. And she breathed again. And I said, okay, start pumping in the pillow. And she started moving her arm. Now, it was very weak when she started, but the more she moved, the better the arm moved. And then pretty soon what she did is she just let the pressure of the seizure roll out of her body. Okay? Now, the seizure happened because it got locked up and it's pounding on the door and the body convulses. Okay? What I did is I said, I want her to breathe, which the first thing is the seizure says she can't breathe and her eyes rolled up. So I'd had her breathe. And it's a little forceful, but what it did is it was a shock to the system. It's like an instant induction. We bypassed the critical faculty and we bypassed the old patterns of the subconscious mind. And she did breathe. And the more she breathed, the easier it was. Then I got her to move her arm. And then within maybe 40 seconds, she's calm again. So instead of going through the seizure, we released it. Okay? When that was done, I gave her a rest. I gave her a drink of water. I want her eyes closed. And I said, say this, sweetheart. Say this. I just released a seizure. And she goes, oh my God, I just released a seizure. Oh. Now, can you see how a seizure is simply the energy in the body trying to get out when the door's locked? Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's like if somebody put their hand over your nose and your mouth, you would struggle for air, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Okay? So the seizure, when I've worked with people that have panic attacks and seizures and blackouts and what's the other one they do? Just overall anxiety attacks, what they don't understand is it's trapped in the body. Okay? And the body's trying to say, let me breathe, let me crap, let me vomit, let me do something with this. And if we block it off, then the body convulses and has to do its other things. Okay? So with her, what we did is in the third session is we taught her how to release the pressure. Now remember how this came up, Alexander. We were working with a childhood event with mother. Okay? So we had gone back in time. And when we landed there, this time, instead of having to hold all those feelings about her mother and go into a seizure, she opened the door and let him out. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, long story short, she did 5 sessions with me. On the 4th session, we found out that as a child, they gave her a pony and they were on a horse ride. And at age 5, I'm sorry, I don't know if I said 4 or 5, but age 5, she fell off a horse and hit her head on a rock. Her mother, for the first time in her life, and maybe the only time in her life, cared for her, took her to the hospital, stayed with her a couple of days. But as the client got better, the mother became more distant and angry and a bad mother again. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
So the little girl in her mind said, if I fall off a horse and hit my head on a rock, mom will love me. Thus, the pressure built from age 5 all the way up to age 14, and she literally, at age 14, her first seizure was she was on a horse, she fell off and hit her head on a rock. It was the exact duplication of what happened at age 5. And what it was is there were a lot of pressure going on with her and mom, and by going through this terrible event, her and mom were close again, okay? So what it was is there was a little girl inside that felt like the only way she could be loved and supported by her mother was being hurt, falling off a horse and hitting her head. So she replicated it. Now, she didn't fall off a horse anymore because she didn't get on a horse, but she continued to have the seizures, not
Mm-hmm.
knowing it was the pressure inside. So what we do is we just go to the first layer. Let's go to the first layer. Let's let that pressure go. Then let's go a deeper layer, and the mind will open up and go to the deeper layer until it took us all the way back to age 5 where this all got started. Now, I didn't see her for a month, but when she came back for her 5th session, 5th session, she looked like a completely different person. She was happy. She was confident. She was bubbly. She was almost skipping. After, let's see, I talked to her a year later and had no seizures a year later. None. Okay?
Okay.
So when we talk about letting the pressure go in later in life, like the 30s, the 20s, I know that some people think you're going to lose the trail. You're going to let go of the hand reeling. And Matt and I have found just the opposite. The subconscious mind is going to feel safer to take you back into the real ISEs, the real causing events. I'm going to take a breath because I'm out of breath. Okay.
Okay. I have a couple questions. One came on my mind. How to work with yourself when you have found. Once I went to past life regressions therapist, and I came to some supposedly past life, and it was some imagination. I don't know, and I didn't feel that it's very. I needed that, so it's kind of where people go from this village, and what are you doing, and and I don't want to spend time there anymore because because I had some problem which I needed to resolve, and no more regression specialist. I didn't know. Only past life regression specialist, so I go to him, and then I explain about Stephen Parkhill's methods and how he goes from symptom to the past event, make regressions.
Yes.
And said, let's do that. So and the hypnotherapist started to do that, and I came to womb scene when I'm in a womb, and my mother is very sad and about situation, and I feel despair that I'm not wanted, and because of me she doesn't want to. I feel not loved that time, and it kind of was very shocking.
Alexander, when you were feeling that feeling, you had your eyes closed. You were revivifying it. I can see on Skype, you had your eyes closed, you're revivifying, you were doing an excellent job. As you think about this event right now, what are you feeling?
Not much. It's kind of a long time from me.
Oh, you were feeling it a moment ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You had, okay.
Okay. Yeah, I just remember distant feeling of despair and try to reduplicate it, but it's kind of, yes. And
a little vague.
Very vague. I try to connect with this feeling, and the problem I said that woman I think didn't make release those feelings. She's
right.
And
this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is the problem with regression. Is if we go back into the subconscious mind and it reveals the situation, the feelings will come along with the situation, and if we refeel them, and if we don't do something about it, and then we feel helpless, and it compounds the problem. Okay, so the releasing of the negative feelings is as important, even more important, than finding the event. I mean, both of them together are both finding the event and releasing the feelings are the ideal healing scenario. Okay, so when we talk about regression, the problem I have with most regression is it's not doing a thorough job of releasing the feelings. They'll say, well, gee, it happened to you in the past, now you can let it go. Well, that's like saying fix your car, but you have no tools. I want to give my clients tools so that when we get there, the despair can release so that they don't carry that in their body anymore.
But how can I release myself? I read Matt's season, probably wrote in some article, I don't remember when, I read it maybe several months ago, that he has some illness and he made regression himself to cure that illness. Uh,
Yeah, well, my buddy Matt Sisson had an amazing self-regression back in about 2003, where he got rid of panic attacks, he got rid of a heart problem, he went back to childhood. It was a long, long process. He's very tough, a lot of releasing. He's the one that taught me that you can do self-regressions. Now, most of the people say, oh, you can't do self-regressions. That's baloney. If I wasn't able to do self-regression, I wouldn't be here now, because I've learned more from doing my self-regressions than I have from doing regressions with other people. So Matt Sisson, to me, is the pioneer of this, being able to say, no, you can have part of your mind be the therapist or the leader, and the other part of your mind being the client or the body or the child or whatever it is, and do a really good job. Now, I'm going to say this, though. You have to understand the processes and the properties and the motivating factors of the subconscious mind before you can do a good self-regression, because you have to know the pitfalls, you have to know the processes. Being able to just, I met a guy a couple of months ago that had been back to his birth. He had been back to his birth on his own. And I was amazed. But the problem was is that he didn't know how to release anything. Okay? So it was like a re-traumatization. So the reason that I became good at self-regression is after I went to Matt for my sessions, I couldn't go back to California from Utah because it cost too much money to go back again. He said, start working with yourself. Now, at first it scared me. But then he said, no, he says, you know this stuff. You had great sessions. You're well trained. You know, he just built me up. And I went out and I started doing very simple self-regressions. And with each week I did them, I got better and better until I've learned some of my best material. As I understood myself, I could understand others. So as I went to Matt 6 years ago to do the process, that helped me understand from a deeper issue how this process really works. What Matt did was so much better than any other hypnotist I'd ever saw. And I said, I have to learn this. So he helped me as I learned it. And Steve Parkhill's teachings were the basis of this. Steve Parkhill was a great facilitator in helping me to get to where I am today. So as we go through this self-regression thing, we're talking about a self-healing. And we can do that like with the EFT. We can just let a feeling go so we can let the feeling go and do something better in the now. But if that feeling's deeper in regression, you can go back to another time and release the feeling and go back to another time. But see, you have to understand the map. You have to understand the trail.
mhm.
And so you have to have, I'm simply saying, I had Matt show me in our sessions what it's like from both sides. Then he encouraged me to start it. And I wasn't that great when I started, but I do know this, I felt better every time I did it. And the more you do, the better you get. Then as I take those lessons and apply them with the people I work with, I have more compassion because I have better understanding of what they're going through.
Okay. Okay, so apply this process on myself. So I can apply this process on myself. I can release all feelings. I can.
Remember, feelings are short-lived unless there's resistance to feeling the feeling, okay? The body wants to let them go, but the subconscious mind can hold on to them. So we have to work through the resistance to let the feeling go. Now, in answer to your question, I'm just going to say, if you want to learn how to do self-work and how to work with other people, I'm just going to do a shameless commercial and say, get our programs, get on our Yahoo group, and continue to work and continue to talk with me. I know that many of the people that we've worked with, many of the people that have come into our group, people have gone into boot camp. Right in the first day of boot camp, when Matt starts to introduce what we're going to do, I get up and then I say, I know you've come to boot camp to learn how to work with other people, but when you come to boot camp, regression boot camp, the person you're going to learn the most about is yourself. You're going to learn what it feels like, how your own internal composition is, and that's going to make you a better person and a better healer and a better hypnotherapist. Okay? So Matt and I believe that if we can't work on ourselves, there's no way we can work on somebody else. If it's not healing me, then I'm going to go do something else, because my job is not to heal the world. My job is to understand, to come to terms with my soul, and as I understand how my soul works, then I can help somebody else. You can't lift somebody up on higher ground unless you're already on higher ground. So a good guide understands the trail. Even if it's a new trail, the guy understands trails. Okay? So what Matt and my view of this is that hypnotism isn't something you do to a person. Hypnotism is part of your natural endowment as a human being to learn, unlearn, relearn, to fulfill goals, to change, and to heal. It's a deeper philosophy. A lot of hypnotism is simply trying to get a symptom shift, a behavioral change, or cover something up. But that is not healing. In many cases, that's not healing. That can actually make things worse. So our approach is, let's go for what the real problem is. And when you get inside there, you'll realize that the way you're constructed inside, your subconscious mind and your soul and your subconscious mind will support you in healing changes. It's understanding how to work with your inner self. As you understand how to work with yourself, you can understand how to work with others and have more compassion in doing it.
What if person finds the very ugly event, or for example, very bad event, and says, "I don't want to go there. It's I already make it
Alexander,
out." Yeah.
Alexander, is this a self-regression or is this one of your clients?
It's one of my clients.
You have to set this up so that you have to set this up with smaller successes. Mini releases. We do some rubbing and tapping. We get some relief. We do the pillow. They feel better. They understand that what I'm teaching them is making them feel better, stronger, with more relief, with more clarity. So we don't just jump back into a fire. If I'm their swimming teacher, if we're at the swimming pool, I don't throw them in the deep and say, "Gee, I hope you can swim." We go down to the shallow and we splash around. We have fun. Eventually they push off the bank. Eventually they swim 3 or 4. Oh my gosh, I can swim. Then they want to go a next step deeper into the pool. See? They want to go. They feel safe enough to go. So then when they learn how to swim where they can't touch the bottom, then they want to go in the deep. And then they want to go off the diving board. And pretty soon they're off the 10-foot diving board. Can you see the step-by-step progression?
Yes. So
when somebody has a major trauma in the body, still in the subconscious mind, that needs to be resolved, if you can set up what we're going to do is we're just going to take a step here, and when your subconscious mind feels safe enough, it'll reveal it. See, a lot of hypnotists, a lot of regression hypnotists, they kick the door down, and I guess they get good results. But what Matt and I have found is if we work with the subconscious mind, we have a more thorough healing change, and we're building momentum for more healing changes. So that when the person in the subconscious mind feel respected and part of the process, it goes a lot easier. So in answer to your question, they don't want to go somewhere. That's okay. You need to give them more what's in it for them. Did you hear me? You need to give them more what's in it for them.
To go to that bad situation.
Right. And how you do that is you back up and you get some mini releases. You get the first success with something simple. Then you get a release with another simple. Then you move into slightly more complex and slightly more complex. It only takes a few, 15 minutes sometimes. I've had people on the first session do a couple of releases, 3 or 4 releases, and go clear back to birth or go clear back to childhood. That's how fast you can gain the trust. But see, if we tried to kick the door down, the subconscious mind will just put more boards up, more steel, more locks on, okay? Because it feels that way. I do not kick the door down. I do not rape and pillage, okay? I want the door to open up, then I will step in. And when that process, when the door opens up, you know you're welcome. You know you're going to get a more lasting change, more cooperation, more momentum for the next change and the next situation that we need to deal with.
Okay, and you talk about rubbing to release feelings. Does it have how process goes? For example, we got some feeling, and you just rub it like here and.
Okay, here's the deal. I'm gonna have to end this conversation pretty soon. But here I'm gonna leave you with some principles. Okay. Number one, Matt and I feel that all feelings are good. All feelings and emotions are good because your good feelings tell you you're on track. You're doing the right thing, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But we also believe that your bad feelings are good because your bad feelings are telling you something's wrong. You're off track. You need to move, change, fix, or release something. So if you're hungry, that's a bad feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's a good feeling because it's telling you something. What's it telling you?
It's telling me that I need energy. I need to find something.
You need to find and eat something, don't you? And as soon as you respond to that feeling and eat something, what happens to the pain? It goes away. What happens to your general feeling is you feel energized, you feel comfortable, you feel ready to go on. So if you pay attention to the negative feeling, it'll tell you what's wrong. Okay? Now, the next thing is, with a client is that I take them through little exercises that build up their confidence that what we're doing is actually feeling right. In other words, I do not hypnotically manipulate them. I don't trick them. I let them feel how good it feels, and then they are open for the next step. And the next step is feelings are short-lived unless there's a resistance to feeling the feeling. In other words, if you just feel really crappy and let yourself feel it, it'll pass through you. But if you're feeling crappy, and you say, I don't want to feel this, the body has to tighten up. Now it's holding the feeling. Okay? Now the problem with that is the next time you have that situation come up, you've already got some feeling inside, you just doubled it. You're already full. Okay? So we want to release the feeling so that I can be clear in the now, and the next time I can be appropriately clear rather than backed up and stored up with other feelings. Like anger, when people are in trouble with anger, they're not so mad about what happened now as that it reminds them all the other times it happened, see? And it tries to get through this one event, this one situation, and they scream and they holler and they act like crazy. And we try to tell them, you're acting like a child, grow up. Well, guess what? A lot of this stuff started in childhood and they didn't know what to do with it. And it feels like it's never going to end. And since it hurts, they get angry. Okay? Because underneath anger is always something that hurts. Something's unfair, unjust, it hurts. That's the real problem. The anger we need to release so that we can figure out what the problem is. So when we talk about rubbing and tapping, we talk about the pillow. Here's the principle. The more you can feel it, the more you can express it. The more you can express it, the more it will release. And as soon as you release, the body will feel better and the mind will grow clear. You'll get some insight. You see that? So what you feel, you can heal. What you don't feel, what you resist, will persist. And if you push a feeling down, eventually it'll push back harder. Okay? Next time we talk, we'll go over the rubbing and tapping.
Okay. Thank you very much, and
you're welcome.